All right. Back with another video. Welcome back to the channel. I just made a video talking about why are spiritual people broke. Please go check that video out if you sounds like it's interesting. I think it's an interesting video. This particular video, we're gonna play a little game on some saw shit. This particular video, I think I'm gonna title it "What is a Spiritual Ego?" What is a spiritual ego? And this particular type of teaching is actually what I'm very passionate about nowadays when we talk about identification with self, identification with your thoughts, your emotions. It's a high level conversation. Shout out to what's the brother's name? Nine Keys. Shout out to him for that coining that phrase there. High level conversation. But yeah, so what is a spiritual ego? So before I begin, just want to do my commercial, right? If anybody's interested in working with me, I do energy healing work. I in terms of energy healing work, I have different energy healing modalities. I am a Reiki healer. I am a Kundalini energy healer. I am a what's that word called? I help a tantric energy healer. I specialize in helping women with womb issues, reproductive issues, sexual trauma, sexual blockages. I'm also as a tantric massage therapist as well. I'm a teacher, and also I do coaching or consultation, whatever phrase you like to use, to help people with their emotions, to help people rid a lot of the stuff that they got going on in their lives. Um, I'll try to leave a description at the bottom, a link at the bottom where you guys can find me, and or I'll leave you guys my email, and you guys can reach out to me. So let's get this video started. Yeah, let's get the video started. So let's talk about this topic. And I think this is something that, like I said, you have to be, you know, have a little bit of understanding of what's going on in this whole spiritual space that we be in. So when we talk about what is a spiritual ego, what is a spiritual ego? I have a definition for you. A spiritual ego is an identity that you identify with to help you stay centered in your spiritual journey towards your true self. So, of course, the journey is an inward journey. It's not an outward journey. It's going within yourself, going back to self, going back to oneness, going back to this Christ consciousness, going back to this nirvana, heaven, um, cultivating that, becoming aware of that, right? So, when we talk about what is a spiritual ego, is it a such thing as that? First, let's talk about the ego. Let's talk about the ego. You have to understand that the ego is with you all the fucking time. And your ego, in the simplest terms, is a state of identification, right? So, whatever you identify with, let me just rephrase it, whatever your ego identifies with is not only what it thinks that it is, but it's also what you think that it is or what you think that you are because you identify with your thoughts. Once you get deeper into the spiritual journey, you start to realize that when we talk about different states of awareness, when we talk about Christ consciousness, when people use this term Christ consciousness, just to demystify that, because people say that word and it makes it sound like you're very fucking powerful, or you're spiritual, or you're fucking enlightened or something when people use this word. But consciousness or conscious just means a state of awareness. So we're talking about being aware of the Christ that's within you, right? And so when we talk about the spiritual ego, you got to understand something, that when you're doing all this yoga work, pranayama work, breath work, energy healing, psychotherapy, hypnotherapy, you name it, acupuncture, whatever you got to do to put yourself in a better state of existence in terms of your well being. You're not doing it for your spirit, you're doing it for your ego. The reason why I say that, let me place some emphasis on why I'm saying what I'm saying. You got to understand that what you truly are cannot be changed. What you truly are can't be wavered. What you truly are cannot be, it's unmalleable. It can't be fickled with. It can't be taken. So you can't subtract from it. You can't add to it. It just is. A perfect example of that is this beautiful imagery, this energy called Shiva. Shiva is considered to be the unmanifested. What you are considered to be is the unmanifested. What does that mean? You are considered to be formless. Formless. What the ego is form. It deals with the form, it deals with reality. And so when we talk about the spiritual ego, we're talking about you spiritualizing the ego, which you identify with in your current, wherever you're at in your current life. So say for instance, you was a person who was a rapper, and you identify with being a rapper for a very long time. So every time people talk to you, they identify you as, oh, that's Joshua the rapper, or that's Joshua that does rap shows, or that's Joshua that does freestyles, or that dude right there, he was on 106 in Park, or he does this and he does that. Everyone identifies you as the rapper and has a rapper lifestyle. That's all you identify with. Eventually, it may come to cross that you have an ego death. An ego death is basically you shifting a different identity. I made a video about that. Please check that out because it's very insightful. There really is no such thing as ego death, but there is a such thing as identity crisis because the ego is just identity. So when you shift your identity from being a rapper to, say, being a spiritual guru, now you identify with being a spiritual guru. And so if you identify with being a spiritual guru, that doesn't mean that you are enlightened. Well, let's say this. The spiritual guru would be considered to be a spiritualized ego. And so when we're doing a lot of this work, so we can get more of this connection with who we truly are. Who we truly are, everything that we identify in this whole entire reality has nothing to do with who we truly are. So we try to spiritualize ourselves to get very close to that vibration we know that resides inside of us. And so, for example, I identify with is Joshua Tree, but this is a mask that I put on. Anybody in the spiritual community, conscious community, music industry, whoever you could think about, movie industry, any of these industries or any of these fields, all have a fucking mask on. What are you saying, Josh? What I'm saying is your favorite yoga teacher, into some distinct, to some extinct, extinct, extinct. I'm saying that word. I feel like I'm saying that word wrong. Extent, right? To some extent, your favorite spiritual guru from India or whatever the case, to some degree, they still have a mask on. You have to have a mask on because you living out this physical reality. So you have to have an ego to in order to play out your physical reality. You got to identify with something to have an experience. That's not a negative thing. But what I'm saying is that don't get caught up in thinking that this is you, Joshua Tree. I am not Joshua Tree. This is identity I created to play out this video game. I identify with Joshua Tree because this is a more heightened, a more spiritualized, a more refined version of me that I feel correlates to my true essence. And so when we're doing a lot of this healing work, we're doing a lot of this spiritual work and things of that nature, we're doing that to get more of this feeling that we feel that is more correlated to our true essence. But Joshua Tree, this version of me, this identity right here, can easily change. Easily. And to give you an example of that, think about a time where you was once into music. Think about a time when you was once into sports. Think about a time when you was working at a certain job and you identified with that job. Think about a time where you was into certain spiritual teachings and now you're into something else. Those are different versions of yourself that you created for yourself to have that experience. Who you are resonating with or vibrating with or identifying right now is your current identity, but it's still not who you are. You are not a name, you're not a thought, you're not an emotion, you're not a physical body, you're not a job, you're not a car, you're not a shoe, you're none of these things. This is everything that the ego identifies with. You are formless. You are spirit itself. You do not have a label on you. You just is. So it is in a sense healthy to have what we call a spiritual ego because let me give an example, a personal example. I do a lot of yoga, right? So I'm in a space now where I have retrained my ego to be addicted to spiritual practices. Now, understand something. When you're doing your spiritual practices, you're doing it for the ego. You might be like, oh no, I'm getting more in tune with my spirit. I'm really feeling my spirit more. You feeling energy for sure. But like I just told you, you can't change your spirit. You can't impact the spirit. It's already whole. It doesn't need to be fixed. Your ego needs to be fixed. Your ego needs to feel like it's whole. This is why a lot of people say, I am enough. I am enough. Because your ego is constantly trying to tell your ass that you're not enough. You're not enough. So you got to constantly use positive affirmations to reaffirm what you think that you're not. So when you're doing yoga and things like this brings up that level of awareness, that brings up that energy to where you start to feel like, okay, like I feel good, like I feel like, more at peace, I feel more zen. These are all great things. But understand that you're not doing that for spiritual growth and development. You're doing that for personal development. Let's go a little bit into this a little bit deeper. A lot of people who are in the spiritual pursuit, the spiritual aspects of things, they would say, well, I'm into spirituality. But when you really reflect on it, when you really think about it, spirituality is way more simple than what the fuck we've been doing this whole entire time. A lot of the work that we're doing is personal development. Another word or synonymous term for the ego is your personality. You have been doing a lot of personality development. You've been changing your personality. So you notice when you get into yoga, you get into some type of meditation or energy work or whatever the case, your personality changes to where you respond to things differently. I was a guy who used to rap and used to curse and used to holler at girls all day. I still do curse and used to holler at girls all goddamn day. Now I don't do none of that. Why? Because my personality has shifted. So now I'm more in identification with this particular personality, aka the ego. And this is what I've been developing the whole entire time because you need to have a healthy ego to have a healthy experience. If you're a person who's constantly triggered or you're a person who, deals with some type of mental disorders or whatever the case, then that is a reality that's going to constantly be played out to you that's going to be a little bit unpleasant for you to have an experience. So when you do a lot of ego work, a lot of personal development work that's been disguised as spiritual work, you're actually spiritualizing your ego. It gets to the point where your ego becomes one with the spirit. So a lot of people in the spiritual communities, and I get this too, this is a thing, they'll be like, well, you're not the ego. And that's true. You're not the ego. Okay, now let's flip it. You are the ego because we're talking about oneness. We're talking about unification. We're talking about non-duality. The ego lives in duality. It always is trying to divide something. It's always trying to separate something. Right? That's his job. But in the grand scheme of things, in a holistic point of view, everything is connected. The ego is even part of this whole entire experience. So we demonize the ego. We say the ego is negative, but you need your fucking ego. Stop trying to rid it. What you really want to do is you want to develop a healthier ego, or you want to shift out the ego that is not conducive to your well-being or your spiritual growth. Or like I just basically, you know, just mystify your personal growth, right? So Understand that when we talk about spirituality, we're talking about you becoming aware of your true nature. And I'm going to say that statement again and say it real slow. You are becoming aware of your true existence, your true self. And that is what you're doing, becoming aware. You're bringing your awareness to a place, to a state of existence where you are that you are aware that you are not your thoughts. You're aware that you're not your emotions. You're aware that you're not this physical vessel. You're aware you're not even this identity. I am aware that I'm not Joshua Tree. This is literally a video game that we're playing. This is like a movie that we're all playing out. My role that I choose to identify with is a spiritual teacher or teacher. I'm aware of this version of myself that I created to have this experience. So it's literally like, this is me, this is Joshua Tree, this is my true self. I am aware of Joshua Tree and all his actions. So what most people do is why most people get lost in the sauce is that they become so into this movie role that they start to act and move and live like this reality is a real reality. It's just kind of like watching a movie. You notice when you're watching like Jason or you're watching Chucky or you're watching Michael, you're watching whatever like horror movie, and you get to the point where the music starts to get real loud and you're watching a movie, and we all know that, say Michael is around the corner or Jason's around the corner, he about to stab somebody, but the person in the movie don't know that they about to get stabbed. So you start to hear the music heighten up and you're like, oh shit, it's about to go down. Don't go that way. Don't go that way. We so into the movie that we lose our sense of awareness. That is how most people are living their life. We are so much into this movie called life. We identify so much with the ego called Joshua Tree that when a bill has came on our front door, or a relationship that just happened that went left, or we got fired from our job, or we have car issues, we're so invested into what just happened that we lose the true sense of awareness and we think we are these entities or these energies that we're living in. Think about when you're watching a movie and you're so into the goddamn movie that you start to have the actual symptoms like you're in the movie. You start to develop anxiety. You start to feel very emotional. You start to feel like, I can't watch this shit. This shit is too depressing because you're so attached to the movie. It has found a way, and this is actually a thing that movie directors do. I think it's called neurosomatics or something like that. You could look it up, but they found ways, or they know how to trigger your subconscious, trigger your emotions in such a way where they get you so emotionally infused into the story. And so this is kind of the same thing with life. Life is constantly trying to get your attention, constantly trying to get you emerged into this thing we call life, this video game. And so most people are not aware that they're not this reality that we're playing out. They're taking it too fucking serious. And so, how do you get into that space of pure awareness, becoming the person who's constantly aware of this identity that you created? Meditation. If you can't get into meditation, then simply just practice. Every time that you have an emotional reaction, know that that is not you reacting, that's your ego. The ego is a very sensitive entity. It will defend every fucking thing. But you, the spirit, you, the soul, you, this pure awareness, that's what you truly are. So if that's what you truly are, what are you trying to defend? Because nothing can damage, nothing can hurt, nothing can make the spirit feel some kind of way. Your spirit is impersonal. So when you're having a reaction, even as a spiritualist, a occultist, a metaphysician, whatever you fuck you identify with, if you say, oh, no, I gotta make my statement, I gotta make my point across, get into debates and things like that, that's still coming from your fucking ego. So when people be like, oh, they got a debate going on, such and such, and talking about this and talking about that, you're in your ego. Don't make it look like you're doing it for the collective so they can ascend. That ain't it. So if you're not in a better place in terms of your ego and at the heightened level of awareness of the ego, then you fucked. because a lot of us are moving with this unconscious understanding, if that makes sense, that we are this physical vessel, or we're this identity. So, give you another example of that. I'm Joshua Tree right now. I got on a Joshua Tree mask. I'm teaching. I'm talking about spiritual concepts, etc., etc. When I get off this phone or this mic, this recording, I'm gonna probably go hop on the phone. And guess what? I'm gonna get in my what you doing, girl? I'm gonna get in my lover mode. I'm gonna get in my shit. I'm over here chilling too. Shit, I'm about to lay it down. You hear the voice? I done switched up my whole tonality. You know what I'm saying? I'm in the swab, the tantric man vibe. I'm in the sensual vibe. I took off this mask of teaching and I put on another mask. We do this shit all the time. You cannot say that you're just this one individual. You have several identities running throughout your body all fucking day. When you're at work, you have a certain identity. When you're at home with your kids and your family, you have a certain identity. When you're out in the world trying to help people and teach people, you're in a certain identity. When you're at the gym, you're in a certain identity. When you're around your friends, you're around a certain identity. We're constantly shifting identities. It's just like the movie The Matrix. If you watch The Matrix 2, when Neo, when he was fighting in a park, there was a bunch of Agent Smiths all around him, surrounding him. He just fighting them all off. He's fighting them all off. What does that really mean? What does that symbolically mean? That means that we have all these identities that are constantly looking for a fix. They're looking for a, uh, a they're looking to feed off of something. You know, I used to be heavy into fitness. That part of me wants a fix. It needs to be fed. It needs to go to the gym. I used to be heavy into chasing girls. That identity wants to fix. It needs to feel nourished. You're fighting all these different entities off, or these different identities off. And so understand that. So when I just laid that out to you, right? My question to you is, then who are you? That is the question that we're trying to ask ourselves, or should be asking ourselves on a consistent basis. The ancient proverb, which I have seen through all spiritual traditions, whatever is in a different language or whatever the case, is know thyself, not know thy emotion, not know thy thoughts, not know thy neighbor, not know physical health. Know thyself. What self are they talking about? The no self, no identity, just pure awareness. You have to get into a space of you being aware of all these things. A great book, and I highly fucking suggest that you read it. And don't audio read it. Read the book. Don't audio read it. Some people got heavy into audio reading nowadays. No judgment. A lot of people got heavy into audiobooks, and sometimes you don't get the internal shift when you do an audiobook, because you're kind of listening to it and you're kind of not, because you're probably doing something while you're doing it. You want to get real focused and start reading books, because the energy that's present in the books will take an existential shift in your reality. I'm talking from experience. Read the book, The New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, and also read The Power Now, and also read Michael Singer's book, The Untethered Soul, and also read The Surrender Experiment. There's other books too, but read them four books. Take your time reading them. Get the frequency, get the vibration, get the practice. I'm telling you, read those books and you'll get an understanding of what I'm saying. What I'm saying will rid a lot of your suffering. What I'm saying will rid a lot of this over anxious energy that you're constantly residing in. What I'm saying is will tap you more into your true essence. And so when you do work, when you do live in this world and do what you do, you know what you truly are and not what you're not, and what you're not. I'm gonna recap. I'm gonna say this shit real clearly. This is a heightened version of me. This is not who I am though. What you mean, man? Your energy is crazy, man. You be knowing some shit. What that sound like to you? Boosting my ego. Yeah, I appreciate the compliments, but at the same time, that's boosting my ego. I'm aware of that. The ego needs it. That's why we do all these affirmations and all this validation that need it, external validation, because the ego literally needs it because it thinks that it's not enough. It really doesn't know what the fuck it is. So identify with the pain that we have accumulated all throughout our life. The pain, body, and ego, they work hand in hand. You could say they're synonymous. So we're constantly trying to heal that part of ourselves. Like I said, the ego is not separate from the spirit. So when you say, I'm trying to work on myself, I'm working on my trauma, I'm working on this, you're working on an aspect of yourself. But eventually you got to let go of that and get into a space of ascension. You want to get into a space of knowingness. You want to get in a space of cultivating this Christ consciousness. And this particular message that I'm speaking of is not for everybody, because everybody didn't come here for this. Everybody came here do whatever they came here to do. For me, and everything that I have accumulated from the different readings to different things that I've studied to just a knowingness that I have, I came here to understand this oneness, to understand or cultivate this level of Christ consciousness that a lot of people like to talk about. But that's the thing, a lot of people are talking about it. Even what I just shared with you today does not do any justice. You have to have the direct experience what it is that I'm talking about, or you will never know what I'm talking about. It's not enough to talk about it. It's not enough to be into the theory based understanding about it. You have to have a practical or empirical understanding, a realization, experience what it is that I'm talking about. If not, go ahead and just start all over again. You know what I'm saying? Because there's such thing as reincarnation. But this is for people who are really trying to get on the path of understanding what the fuck they are. And it's very simplistic. I'm telling you it right now. It is not all this information that's out here that we have been bombarded with and infused with to think that we're ascending. All you're doing is actually amplifying more of your mental state. You're actually amplifying more of your mental stimulation. That's why you see a lot of teachers who are very into a lot of the stuff that I'm referring to, but they're more mental. They're very, very mental, and it's needed for teaching. But if they can't bring you to a space where they can make you have this realization that they're speaking about, or they can't point no resources out for you to do it for yourself, then I'm need you to think twice about constantly listening to them, because now it becomes a religious church member connection, pastor telling you what you should do, and you like, yes, yes, amen, you right, ashe, and you just going for your Sunday sermon. You need to have the fucking experience yourself. It's not enough for anybody to tell you what you need to be doing. You need to get the experience yourself. So for people like me or other people who are out here trying to enlighten people or try to teach people, we're at least, I'm fuck all that. Me is trying to get you into a space where you can have these realizations for yourself. But you gotta want that for yourself. You know what I'm saying? So let's recap. Let's recap. So, what is the spiritual ego? The spiritual ego is an identity that you identify with to help you stay centered in your spiritual journey towards your true self. It's needed because it's either the ego, it's always this ego versus the spirit. That's the only enemy in this whole entire existence. All that shit that's going on in the world is a big ass distraction, and people just keep eating this shit up. The biggest distraction that you need to focus on is your fucking ego. And the reason why you need to focus on your ego, because everything outside of your ego is trying to bait your ego to get its attention. The ego loves attention. It's always constantly trying to get attention. So it's your ego versus your spirit. It's the devil versus Jesus. It's I don't know. I can't think of something else. But you get what I'm trying to say. So you want to get to the point where the ego starts to work more in your favor and not go against you every fucking time. That's what we call spiritualizing the ego. To the point where the ego starts to do what the spirit, in a sense, tells it what to do. You came down here to do some work, so you best believe you need to get rid of some of this karma that you have developed for many lifetimes or even in this lifetime. So doing a lot of the yoga, the pranayama, the meditation, the energy healing, the breath work, whatever it is that you're into, doing a lot of that burns a lot of that karma up, right? But ultimately, what you truly are doesn't need to be changed. Like, you have to also know that this is who you truly are. So anything that I've done in this whole entire existence, I never done it. Whatever identity that I was in that moment, that is the energy that done it. If you identify with yourself and say, "Oh, I've hurt this person and I've done this and I harmed this animal and I've done this. I feel so bad. I feel like I'm going to hell. I feel like I just, I don't know what to do with myself." If you identify with that version of yourself, then that version of yourself is who you will die with. But that version of yourself doesn't exist. It's just part of this game that we are playing. That is not who you really are. You never done any of those things. You are pure. You are innocent. You are whole. You are everything. You are not this version of yourself that you constantly self-condemning and demonizing and judging. That is not who you are. That's the ego. The ego is a very intelligent entity. And then I'm gonna flip it and say it's a very unintelligent, intelligent entity. Because the motherfucker is smart, but is dumb at the same goddamn time. So a lot of us identify with that version or that particular energy and have not gotten to the space with who we truly are. And I think on that note, I'm about to go. So if you resonate with this message, if you've got any questions, you got any comments, drop a comment below. And I would like to see some fire flames. Let me do some emojis, fire flames. Let me know if this hits hard for you, if you're feeling it. And yeah, I think I'm about to go. I think I've said everything I need to say. Yep. All right, you guys. I'm about to call it a night. So I'll talk to you guys in the afterlife or whatever life that you're living in. And on that note, peace.